So hi everybody, you're very welcome back to Law Hero. My name is Jen and I make videos about the law and other things, and today is one about the law, so stay tuned. I have a bugbear, and that is with regalia, legal outfits, or the legal outfits that are worn in court, specifically around barristers. And what prompted this YouTube video is an article I saw that the UK barrister profession have finally discarded their wigs. The last jurisdiction to do so, common law jurisdiction to do so. And it got me thinking. So my question is, why do lawyers dress like it's 1780? And I want to have a conversation about the dress, power, race, and the future of the legal profession. So I know what you might be thinking. This is harmless, it's just dress. But actually it talks a lot and it says a lot about power, tradition, and who the justice system is built for. And to me it is surviving symbols of an older legal culture. And so I wanted to talk about it. It also reminded me of when I first joined the profession. My mom said to me, "Oh, you're going to have to change how you look. You can't be dressing like that. You can't be acting like that. You can't have your hair like that. You need to change how you look. You're entering a profession." And I thought to myself, God, isn't that sad? You can't even be yourself in the job you're going to do until you're 70. So it's part of that. It's part of my bugbear with that. But it's also, it makes me uncomfortable when I see people dressed up in wigs and robes. And I'm a lawyer. I understand the system. So I want to talk about that. I want to go deeply into that. So obviously I can't speak for the UK. I can only speak for Ireland. That's where I'm from. And it got me thinking, like the WRC, which handles our labour disputes, they don't wear any robes. The adjudicators in the Workplace Relations Commission don't wear any robes. Solicitors do not dress up to go to court, in robes. In-house lawyers, which is what I am, we look like our client. We act like our client. Mediators wear normal clothes. Barristers go into court in these Victoria era gowns, and I've been to court with barristers representing me. It always takes me aback, and I'm a lawyer, so I can only imagine how it comes off to people who aren't used to seeing that. So obviously if I'm having this feeling, I wanted to explore it more, because if it's a power dynamic and it makes me feel like that, I wanted to look into the roots of it. I wanted to look about, the classism, the race, the gender, because it's certainly it was male-led. No woman ever want to be in that robe. No way. And power and the comfort around the justice system. This is really, really interesting to me. So if we look back to where it came from, like, this is not a modern democracy concept. It wasn't designed to make justice accessible. It was designed for a small group of white, wealthy male insiders. And it actually grew out of the British aristocratic culture. And robes and wigs were seen as badges of class membership. So the idea was that the elite would be separated from everybody else. They would not be neutral. And it was a way of signalling that this belongs to us. This justice system belongs to us. We are arbitrators of fact. And this is our system. You are coming into our system. And even though society has transformed, the symbols are still there. And that means that the power dynamic is still there. And when people are defending the dress, they say, oh, it's to promote neutrality. It means that, that person is, you can't see what they're wearing, they're neutral. But I don't think that neutrality comes from a robe. I think it comes from your behavior, how you listen, how you treat someone. You don't need to dress in a certain way to be an objective person. And this is my problem. And then my question is, why did it take this long for the English to get rid of only the wig, not the robe? Why? And I think it's pretty simple. The barrister profession in particular loves this. And I know this myself, being a solicitor and being around barristers. They like the mystique that comes from the regalia. And also they like putting on the robe and the wig. It makes them feel a certain kind of way. And they put on the robe for every occasion. It doesn't matter if it was the opening of an envelope, they will put that robe on. And that's what I take issue with. It reinforces their idea of a hierarchy. It tells the public, I'm the expert, not you. You're not the expert. The other thing I think the dressing up does is signal status. And, you don't mind signaling that you're a professional by way of your knowledge or, your take on things, your opinion. But I think when you're relying on clothing, that is a form of gatekeeping, I think. And I feel like without the robes, the mystique fades, and that's why, they're clutching their pearls. And it makes the hierarchy less impressive. And that's a hot take, but that's my. And no shade. I am not saying anything as barristers as people. I am talking about the dress. That's all I'm talking about. If we solicitors can get on with it, so can they. It's access to justice. It's accessibility. And I believe that the dress imposes a barrier to accessibility because it is not relatable. It is how do I put this as succinctly as possible? It causes division. It creates a us and them. And of course, there's going to be fear in losing power. When that power slips away, there's always going to be a fear. And I think, especially when it comes to the role of barristers in common, it's very, very difficult to explain the role of barristers in civil law jurisdictions, or even if you have CEOs who've never come across barristers before, they don't understand why a solicitor can't advocate in higher courts. They don't understand the extra cost. They don't understand why why the barrister is drafting the proceeding. They don't understand. We try and explain it to them. But I think that if barristers look like their clients, and if barristers look like solicitors, or they look like in-house lawyers, the gap is going to close. And once the gap closes, maybe then people will start asking the harder question. Why do we still split the profession between barristers and solicitors? Why do we treat advocacy as a separate club? Why does the bar still hold so much power over the courtroom? And why do barristers still get the best seats in the hierarchy? And I think it is the costume that is protecting the club. People don't accept authority in the way they used to. And I think authority is interpreted more through conduct than what people wear. You see it in other professions as well, like doctors, they don't really wear the white coat anymore because it separates them from the patient. Even if you look at the Gardaí, I'll put up a picture here. The Gardaí have softened their uniforms because they're trying to get closer to the public. They're trying to come off as less hostile in public policing, and they're trying to become a stakeholder locally rather than them and us, and causing that divide. They don't rely on centuries old outfits to prove that they matter. They prove that they matter through their conduct, and that is why I believe that courts are behind the curve in Ireland. The court system, the judicial system is behind the curve. By the way, we don't need barristers for our day-to-day legal interactions. We only need them in court for the advocacy piece. That's why they have to wear these robes, because they're advocates, and advocates wear special robes, apparently. Of the Workplace Relations Commission, you have adjudicators there. Thousands of employment disputes year on year, and people show up in normal clothes and they get on with it. They sit across the table from each other. The adjudicator listens with clarity and fairness. The process is serious, it is structured, and nobody needs a wig or a robe. The legitimacy comes from the process itself, and I think that is the way the court should move. We need a system that is owned by the public, not by a private guild in costume. It is filled with British imperial culture. It is alienating to people. Okay, the wigs are gone, thank God, but the gowns, they were created in a time when most of the population was excluded from power, be it they couldn't go to university or they were illiterate or whatever. People from minority backgrounds may feel like that is a reminder of a system that was not built for them. I don't need to wear a robe around my workplace to signify that I'm the legal counsel. No, it's how I talk. It's how I advise. It's how I've built trust. It's through competence, not through costume. And, you know, it's through your humanity, your relatability. Are you a good communicator? The authority comes from your knowledge and competency and the value that you bring as a lawyer to an organisation, not what you're wearing. So yeah, I think that in-house lawyers have paved the way to show that you don't need any of that. You know, they're well integrated into business. They're not gatekeepers. We collaborate. We don't talk in legalese. We talk like business people because we want the business to get done in a safe and compliant manner. We facilitate business. We don't need symbols. We get recognised for what we do, not what we wear. So when we go and litigate and I'm surrounded by barristers, I'm a little bit like, who are these people? But then if you think about it, like, it's changing now. It's starting to change that more solicitors are becoming judges, but the majority of judges come from the bar. So that's the cultural aspect. And culture eats strategy for breakfast. And this is the problem. If most judges come from the bar, they're going to keep the old rituals, and they see the robe as part of their identity. It's a continuum. So maybe now that some judges are coming from the solicitor profession, it might change things, but they might. I mean, solicitors are used to modern workplace. They're used to dealing with clients, in-house counsel. They don't rely on costumes to signal authority. So over time, the attachment might change. I hope public expectation will also be a driver, especially when you see like the alternative dispute resolution, like tribunals, mediation, online hearing, arbitration, the old structures. People are being dissuaded from using the old structures to come to justice, which I think is a great thing. And I acknowledge that the court hearing and structure should be formal. I am not advocating for a deformalization of, hearings or anything like that. I just think that it does not need to look like the 1700s. It can be modern and still be serious. I think so. And the truth is, if we do detach ourselves from this costume, it will become more inclusive. It doesn't have to be this narrow slice of history where people wore robes. Like before that, they didn't do that. You know, it was just an intimidation for intimidation's sake. And I think that power should be earned through experience and behaviour and not through regalia. So this is the conversation we need to have. Rather than like, should barristers keep their robes? It should be, what does our justice system want? And what should it look like so that it is accessible and understandable to everybody? So yeah, we need to modernise formality. That's what I am advocating. Yeah, let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next one.